Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for algebra, this is section 5 or unit 5, section 4, solving quadratics. So what you need to be able to do by the time we're done with this is figure out a way to solve a quadratic using a method that is appropriate. So there's three kind of basic ways to solve a quadratic. The first one is graphing to find the x-intercept. So if you can graph, you can figure out where they cross the x-axis. That is one way to solve a quadratic. The second one, if you don't like graphing, would be factoring. You factor it, and then you use the zero product property. That is where you set your two factors equal to 0 and solve for each one, and that will give you the answers as well. The third one, if one you don't like and two doesn't work, you can use the third one, the quadratic formula. That is here. That is the negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So now let's kind of jump right into it and look and see what's happening here. So if I got x squared plus 9x plus 20, solve using the zero product property just means factor plus one more step. So for those of you guys that do the x, you know, what's that? What adds up to 20 and or what multiplies to 20 and adds up to 9. Some of you guys might switch this and that's fine. So, well, 5 and 4 should kind of jump out at you there. So that's just going to be x plus 5, x plus 4. So since it equals 0, the zero product property says, well, either the first thing has to equal 0 or the second thing has to equal 0. Okay, so I take this part and this part, set each part equal to 0 and solve it. So with algebra, so -4, -5. So that is one way to solve that quadratic. The other way, using the quadratic formula. Well, I like to write down what is A, what is B, what is C, and with the signs just to kind of keep things straight. That way I know exactly what I'm substituting in for. So jump back. It's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a, or 2 times a, which is 1. So simplified, that becomes -9 plus or minus 9 squared is 81. 4 times 1 times 20 is 80 all over 2. So that becomes -9 plus or minus 81 minus 80 is just going to be 1. The square root of 1 is 1 all over 2. So this is where I split it. I go -9 plus 1 divided by 2, -9 minus 1 divided by 2. So -9 plus 1 is going to be -8 divided by 2 is going to be -4. -9 minus 1 is -10 divided by 2 is -5. So once again, -4, -5, that matches up to what I got on the left. Life is good. So now if I look at the graph, this is the graph of x squared plus 9x plus 20. Notice something. Where does it cross the x-axis? Well, it crosses at -4 and at -5. Okay, this is -6 over here. This is -4, -2. So something should have jumped out at you that that's exactly what we got when we factored it and when we did the quadratic formula. That's not a coincidence. Okay, that's the way it's going to kind of happen. So if I say x squared plus 10x minus 24, same kind of idea, a little bit different. Now, x squared plus 10x minus 24 equals 0. So for those of you guys that use the x, you might put 10 on the top and then -24 on the bottom. So be careful, because here's what I'll get a lot of. I will get a lot of kids try to tell me like this is -6 and -4. And I don't know why, but they somehow think that that's going to give me 10. Or they'll just give me 6 and 4. But 6 times 4 doesn't give me -24. So that doesn't work either. You got to be careful, because here's what I need. I need +12 and I need -2. Those are my factors. So I need x plus 12 and x minus 2 as my factors. Zero product property says set this part equal to 0, set this part equal to 0. Solve each piece, little mini algebra problem. So negative 12 and 2. So now, hopefully, if I do quadratic formula the right way, I get the same thing. So here, A will be 1, B will be 10, C will be negative 24. Bring signs with you. So this becomes negative 10 plus and minus square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 24. All over 2 times 1. So now this becomes negative 10 plus or minus square root of 100 minus 4 times 24. Or minus 4 times 1 times negative 24. So this actually becomes addition. So 4 times 24 is going to be 96 all over 2. Well, if I add this part, 100 plus 96, obviously 196. 196, the square root of that is going to be 14. So I get negative 10 plus 14 divided by 2. Negative 10 minus 14 divided by 2. This is where I split it. This one goes here. This one goes here. So this becomes 2 and negative 12, which is exactly what I matched up on the left. Now, when I go to graph this, look at where I cross. Hey, look at that. Positive 2, negative 12. That matches up. That's exactly the way it should be. That's the relationship I've got to realize is happening here. So 2x squared plus 3x minus 4. So I put something in front of x squared. Don't panic. Don't go crazy. I can still do this. I promise. So I get 2x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. This is the part where you take 2 times 4. All right, 2 times negative 4. So this becomes negative 8. That is what I put into my x. So this will be 3. This will be negative 8. All right, so can I do anything with that? Well, do I know anything that multiplies to negative 8 but adds up to 3? No, I do not. So this one can't be factored. When that happens, don't be nervous. That's fine. Like I said, you're fine there. You can't factor it, but I can still do quadratic formula. So A will be 2, B will be 3, C will be negative 4. Okay, so it becomes negative 3 plus or minus square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 4 all over 2 times 2. So, little order of operations. What did I miss there? So negative 3 plus or minus 9 and 16 is 25. Square root of 25 is 5 all over 4. So this becomes negative 3 plus 5 over 4. Negative 3 minus 5 over 4. So this becomes 1/2. This becomes negative 2. So let's see something. I made one minor mistake, guys. I'm terribly sorry. Let's back up here a little bit. Sorry, my apologies. 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 4. Well, negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Times 2 makes this 32. So negative 9 plus or minus square root of 41 over 4. This is about as simple as you can make that. Technically, it's still two answers because it's negative 3 plus square root of 41 over 4 and negative 3 minus square root of 41 over 4. Okay? You can put that into a calculator to get a big, long, ugly decimal. That's fine, but I don't like decimals. If you left it like that for a quiz or a test, I would be okay with that. So, and if you look, this isn't quite on, these aren't quite on the corners of anything. They're in between. So those would be the decimal values of the solution to that. So when does factoring not work? Factoring doesn't work when the x can't be solved. This means that the roots are not rational or there is no solution. If the x can't be made, use the quadratic formula. So let's take a look. The FHS physics department is having a pumpkin flinging contest in the football field for Halloween. One team's function has pumpkin has a trajectory that can be traced by the function negative 16t squared, which is gravity, plus 72t. Pick a method, find out how long it takes to team's pumpkin to hit the ground. So think about this. So what I'm trying to figure out is this. Here's the pumpkin that gets launched in the air, and I'm trying to figure out how long it's going to take to hit the ground. So I'm trying to figure out if this is the launching point, like if this is 0, 0, how long does it take to get way over, or how long is it going to take to get in the air? Because this is going to be time, and this is going to be height. All right, so here's the pumpkin at the starting point. It gets launched in the air, whee, splat right over here. I want to know how long is it going to take to hit the ground. So what I'm looking for is the x-intercept. All right, so like I said before, this is gravity. This ends up being kind of the velocity of which the pumpkin is launched with. So you can do it any way you want, but there's no constant. Okay, so what I might do a little bit is factor a little bit, but I'm not going to factor by using the x because I've got things in common with both here. So what I might do is this. I might factor out like a common factor. So I would I'll factor out a negative 8t. And I factor out a negative because here's what happens. If I do that, this becomes 2t plus, or not plus, minus 9 equals 0. Okay, so this is kind of the zero product property again, except here's all I'm saying. Here I'm saying negative 8t equals 0, 2t minus 9 equals 0. So t equals 0, or t is going to equal 4.5. So we already knew that though. We already knew t was 0. That's the starting time. Okay, that's when the pumpkin gets launched. 4.5, that's how long it takes for the pumpkin to come back down. All right, and I could do that using quadratic formula. That's fine. It would just be a equals negative 16, b equals 72. C in this case is going to be 0. All right, that would be fine. But I would still get 0, and I would still get 4.5 as my answers. Okay, come talk to me with questions. Get this figured out. This is not easy. This takes practice. Work through it, and you will be much better for it. All right, we'll talk to you soon.